June 20th, regular scheduled board meeting for the Henderson County Board of Education. Welcome everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. If we could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And Mr. Steve Steiner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Before we move on to the approval of the agenda, which is something we're learning how to do, before we do that, I would like the board's permission to move item number 6C, which is the spring math results, up to the first part of the report. So it will be moved to item 6A because we have a staff member that needs to leave shortly thereafter. It will. Well, no, it will require a motion to approve it after the change. That's right. That's right. We don't have to make a motion to move it. We need to approve it before we do it. And then everything else will just fall down in succession after that. Nod heads, I'm seeing that. Okay. Okay, so that we will move item 6C to 6A and adjust down. And the rest of that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as listed. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. And do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Agenda approved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to student and staff recognition. Ms. Burnett.
Sure. Good evening. Hello. Good evening. We do have two different sets of students we want to recognize tonight. None of them were able to attend, and we will make sure that we get their medals to them. Each one had conflicts with summer activities or vacation, but we didn't want the month to go on without, or any longer to go on without recognizing. And the first one is our Judges Scholar. Every month we recognize the Judges Scholar that gets to go and meet our county judge executive, and they proclaim the day in Henderson County to be their day. And this past May, Kendall Hargrove, a 5th grade student from A.B. Chandler, was our Judges Scholar, and she spent the morning with our new judge executive, Brad Schneider. We also wanted members of the board to share with you that our junior chef team has advanced to the state competition. These 4 young culinary arts people are under the direction of Jenny Johnson at the high school, and they have created their own recipe. It is baked honey garlic chicken, and they will get to go to competition in August. I'll name those students, and because you might know who some of them are. And do we have a picture for them? You can even see them. There they are. Sierra Marquez, Zane Hankins, Audra Goodley, and Fernanda Gomez. They are students that will be traveling, and we'll make sure we get their medals and their Excellence in Action stickers to them.
They are here. They are preparing samples.
That's even
We're
better.
going to take just a few minutes to be a little late. He's good to run over and tell them we're ready.
Gosh, I was going to make that suggestion, but
We're pointing at Mr. Schneider. He kept going. There's nobody over there but Aaron.
wasn't there earlier?
Yeah. Okay, so Madam Chair, if you're okay, we'll go ahead and progress with the agenda, and when they come, can we pause and bring them out and give them their medals?
I have paused this meeting for worse things.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Moving on to public participation and recognition of guests. I don't have any notes that anyone wants to speak to the board. Does anyone want to speak to us this evening? Hearing none, we will move on. Is there any committee reports to be given this evening? I don't see any listed. So we will be moving on to 2015-2016 spring map results. Ms. Kim.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me this evening. I did provide for you all, in addition to some of the data, and I promise I actually condensed this from 6 pages to 3 pages, the explanation about the new norms. Every so many years, NWEA does revise and update their norms because they want their results to be as reliable and valid as possible. So they had the 2015 norms, which became available as of last summer. And so I wanted you to just kind of understand some of the differences between those. And again, kind of explain maybe why you don't have as many reports, because we're kind of starting off at a brand new point with 2015 norms. And as it says here, within the first couple of paragraphs, it's inadvisable to compare performance to previous sets of norms. So we're basically kind of starting over. We didn't get rid of that data. I promise we still have it all. And lots of spreadsheets everywhere. And we as a district, our principals, in earlier meeting this month, they've already seen their schools reports. Of course, they've already looked at individual student data. And we're continuing to analyze those things. Mrs. Stanley's having a conversation with folks, and we will continue to look at those things instructionally for continued performance and instructional changes. In addition, you have 3 bullets there that talk about some of the changes between those norms. Obviously, demographics change within schools and districts and states over a 4-year period. They feel like these are probably the most reliable and valid norms that they have. For one reason, because as they tell you, they compared it over 9 testing terms, where previously it's just been 5. So you have quite a bit more reliability. And they also talked about their norms are a little bit different because initially we had a whole lot of states jump on board with Common Core standards. And in this time period since 2011, we've had some stay, we've had some change, some implement part of it, come up with their own standards. And so that has kind of impacted why they think that there may be some differences between these norms and last norms, whereas Kentucky obviously has adopted wholeheartedly, fully implemented. That has not happened nationally. And again, this is a national norm test. Also wanted to emphasize that at the bottom of the page there, it talks about the median condition growth, and we've typically shown you like the median score of our students longitudinally, where you can compare things. But again, one of the other changes that they've added this year that is really, really helpful for us and beneficial is they now allow us to put the number of instructional weeks in to the program itself so that our data for our kids is more reliable. Before, we had to go just on what they said their norms were. And so our fall, winter, and testing windows aren't where everybody else in the country always tests. Many schools, we start in August. Many schools do not start until September. So we're, in some cases, testing earlier than a lot of schools. Definitely in the winter, we do not have nearly as many instructional weeks between our testing terms. So there's another reason that some of these things may not always be exactly where we thought they were. We really saw a difference in our winter scores as far as the amount of time we had compared to their norms. We saw some differences. It was actually to our benefit because our kids did really well in the short amount of time they had between fall and winter, but it did not match their norms and percentiles, and it was because of those instructional weeks. On the last couple of pages, you have 2 different things. The charts at the bottom of the second page basically are showing you the student status norms, and again, this is based on NWEA and what they say are the testing weeks at the beginning of the year, the mid-year, and the end of year. Previously, you saw the terms fall, winter, spring. They're not even using those terms anymore because they said that's different everywhere. Oh, we need to pause. These folks, no, please. Everybody's been waiting for this. This is much more important than what I'm doing.
This is part of our junior chef team.
Won't you go up there and tell everybody who you are, what you do?
Today we prepared a honey garlic chicken with steamed rice and sauteed broccoli. Enjoy.
We very much appreciate the leadership of our young students at the high school. We wish you the very best of luck. What a treat. We thank you for the sample tonight. And Ms. Charlotte, thank you. And also the instructor, Ms. Johnson, for being here. We wish you all the best of luck. Absolutely. Can we get a picture together, please?
Oh, that'd be great.
There you go. Now we're talking.
There you go.
So anyone else like that? Thank you all very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
You'll keep us posted, right?
Yes.
Thanks. Oh. We
Does anyone need a glass of tea? We have 3 more plates here. If you want to stand, if you're interested. Oh, is it time?
Got a little bit. Hello.
Mr. Zach. Tea out here. Plate.
Yeah, is that red sauce?
I start saying it's the red sauce that makes sense. Steve, I'm of the opinion it's more need to care.
You all just enjoy, and I'll just keep talking. Just hot enough. Baby pop. At the bottom of that second page, it also explains to you a little bit so that you understand what standard deviation is. That's one of the things that sometimes folks get a little bit challenged by. They give a really nice simple definition of that, and just basically that kind of shows either the similarities or the differences between the groups of kids at that particular time of year, at that particular grade level, and if they retested, they would score somewhere between that range, either that many above or that many below, at least 68% of the time. The last page that you have, as opposed to talking about the student status forms, it talks about the growth norms, and so you see those from year to year as well. The mean there would be a typical number of grit points between those terms, and again, you see the standard deviation. You have to take into consideration that students who typically score higher may not have as much growth, and students who are not scoring where they need to be scoring, meaning below grade level, should not only make that much growth, but they need to make some additional catch-up growth as well. So that's kind of a synopsis of those 3 pages. The reports that you have are similar to ones we've looked at previously. They have added some things, as I said, because they are constantly refining and trying to give folks the best information to help them instructionally within their grade levels in classrooms and in schools. You have 2 sets. You have math and reading, fall to fall, aggregate growth by district, and then you have spring to spring. In the spring of last year, they did convert to the actual 2015 norms, so that is data that we can actually compare. And just kind of go through this briefly with you. Of course, you have the grade level, the student count, and that's the growth count, so that means we have to have students for whom we have scores in the fall as well as the spring. We have lots of kids that we don't have it tested every term because they're not in our school system every term. If they move within our schools, we do have that data, however. You see the standard, you see then the mean RIT for our kids at that grade level in the fall. Again, may be different from NWEA because of where and when we tested in the instructional weeks. Our standard deviation, this is relevant specifically to our students, not necessarily their norms. And so that's why these are very, very specific and very, very relevant specifically just to us as we look at them. So again, that standard deviation and where that percentile, where that mean RIT would be as far as a percentile based on their norms in the fall, and then you also see that in the spring. As you move to the growth category on each of those charts, you see what was actually the observed growth, and that's basically the change in the RIT from the fall to the spring. You see what the observed growth standard error would be, and again, This is from fall to spring. If they repeat the test, there's a range, and it's plus or minus that sampling with the 68th percentile, 68% of the time, as they mentioned previously in the narrative. The projected growth, this is again based on our district norms of where our average, our mean, where it was in the fall and the spring for content area and grade level. It also takes into consideration the number of instructional weeks. And then as the schools look at that, it is specific to their schools. So they can see each grade level within their own school. We can see the district as a whole. The projected growth is then obviously what NWEA would say we should attain as far as for growth for those kids who were at that average. Then you get the number of students who actually met that out of the growth count back from the first column. And then what percent of those students actually met the projected growth. The last two columns, please, of the comparative, those are actually new. They have added those, and so basically as you look at that conditional growth index, and it says school, even though this is a district report, they're calling it the same thing. And that's basically what we're seeing, the difference between those. Obviously a positive number, you saw more growth, a negative number, you saw less. If you actually, and we don't have any who are exactly at zero, but if we did, that would be perfect because that would just mean absolute typical growth. We don't see any major extremes anywhere. We see some things about a tenths of points. We see a nice 2.4 at kindergarten in math, which is probably our highest in those categories as you look at those. And then that last column again is the growth percentile according to those national norms. When you look at the bottom of the page and you see the chart at the bottom, basically the blue box that you see, that's from that column that says observed growth. So that's where we are. That's exactly where our kids scored. So if you see that number, I'm looking at the fall to spring math, and for observed growth in kindergarten, it was 26 points. So that's where that falls on that chart. The yellow diamond is what they said the projected growth should be. As you look at ours, most of them are right where they should be. Some even exceeded, obviously, the growth, which you didn't see with the specific numbers as they correspond. We do have, when you look again just at the mean for this, we have some of those numbers, but they didn't make as much growth. We can see those at particular grade levels. We see some definite strengths as well as we look through those. And again, you have those fall to fall and spring to spring. Our growth typically seems better fall to spring. Typically, I'm going to work really hard for that teacher I have this fall to spring, but we're really, really emphasizing, and our principals see this, our curriculum specialists emphasize this, and our teachers understand this now. It's very, very important that spring to spring growth as well, because that's truly a calendar year from where a child was to where he or she ended. So taking that into consideration, even if I'm a third grade teacher and I didn't have that child in the second grade, I have to know where he or she ended up last year. And they need to start off at that level for me coming in that fall and continue to progress and grow. And so our teachers are very much used to saying, okay, I got you in August, this is where I'm going to get you in May. But no, we need to go back and say, well, this is where you ended in May last year, I've got to get you here in May. And sometimes those numbers are a little bit different, but we understand, our folks understand that that's much more of an emphasis now. It's not just about what I have in the classroom, it's about that child, and he or she continues to grow every single year. Any questions about anything? Yes, ma'am.
Just a question. Obviously, sixth grade kind of jumps out.
Yes.
But in both reading and math, do you have any kind of explanation for that? Or second question is, what do you plan to do to address sixth grade curriculum or teaching strategies?
To answer your first question, again, the test changes depending on the levels. Like, for example, our K-1 students have audio for the test. When they start the second grade, it's the 2 through 5 test, and they have to read it on their own. When I move to 6th grade, it's a 6th plus. So like 6th grade through 11th grade test. And there is a big difference between that 2 through 5 test and that 6 and up test. And that's honestly what we're seeing, and we're aware of that. I'll let Ms. Swanson and Ms. Stanley discuss the instruction.
And we've seen that for years and years. It's kind of always been there. because it really is not the great best comparison of apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Such a huge jump. I've actually taken, this was years ago, so it's not the perfect exact test that it is today, but several years ago, I took the test myself to see what that was like, comparing 5th grade with the 6th grade reading test. Well, there was a big difference in the text.
Years ago when we did this, we had those charts that we could follow for 10 years. That's kindergarten all the way down. Are we going to be able to do that with these charts? Now, I know you said we're starting over, but we'll be able to see that in the coming years, the same progression, because that's, it's like some of the other things we talked about, it's the time that tells you whether you're doing it right or doing it wrong. Sometimes when you're without it. So.
Yes, ma'am. And we have that, and it's in with the others, and even like when we changed, because we had 2011 norms. Prior to that, were they 06 or 09? I think 5, 8, and 11. So again, they've changed multiple times since we've done this, and in addition, our standards have changed. So there's a lot. So it really is sometimes, even when we look at the data we currently have, and we've done this since 2006, we could literally go back that far. But there's so many variables and things that have changed, it is hard to compare and say, if I started here as a kindergartner and now, after this many years later, I just finished up 8th grade, or I'm not doing math right, obviously. But if we looked at those kids, they've been measured on different norms and different standards multiple times, even over that. And yes, we can still look at that, but are we really getting as much accuracy and validity? It really helps more, and that's where we get down to it at the school level and the teacher level. You have to look at the kid, and you have to look at that child where he or she is individually. Sometimes it's a little more, it's not as reliable and valid if we're looking at it holistically, because all of those variables come into play.
And some of this is going to be, like this is going to start running into the bottom of the ACT and some of the other tests, some of the other tests that we use on a high school level. This is going to start coming up to the bottom of them, where before this test went all the way through the 10th grade. Correct?
Yes, ma'am. It still actually does go. It still does go through the 10th grade. We just don't in our district use that because, again, as you mentioned, the ACT is what our measurement truly is at the high school. So as opposed, and this is used for us. Really, what we have to have with our TI KSI is called our universal benchmark, and it's an assessment that we have to administer 3 times per year per law. The high school, again, chooses to use the Cambridge ACT as one of their measurements to do that, as opposed to using MAP, because they felt like, again, at that point, previously, it wasn't doing what they needed it to do. Now, I will tell you, MAP does have some predictions for ACT, because they realize those things, and they have now done some of their studies to actually do some projected scores for ACT on the composite of 22, as well as the more rigorous composite of 24.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so now moving on to architecture and construction reports. Mr. Gregg.
Good evening. Okay, 2 things on the agenda. The first one is the BT3. Neil couldn't be here tonight, but Codell put the BT3 together. And what it talks about is the construction cost and then the overall project cost as well. And you can see by looking at the BT3 that they break down the construction costs of site development, general construction, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, including the sprinkler system, electrical work, and sewage disposal system. We don't have a sewage disposal system other than the treatment plant that's already there, so we didn't break that out. We just included that as part of the sewers. So there was no significant change in Bill's cost opinion. So when you look at the 522, 681, that's roughly the same number that he had at the last cost opinion that they did, which would give your total project cost to be just under $17 million at $16,999,705.05, which is again
members, any questions about this BG1 or BG3, sorry? Probable cost. Any question? This is a document we need to get approved and sent on to the state, so I'll look for a motion to approve BG3 as listed. Thank you, Mr. Brad. Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Plans for building, or plans for bidding, I'm sorry.
The next item is the actual contract documents that we're asking you to approve so we can go out for bidding. We've had set as our bid date 7/28/2016. We believe we'll be able to meet that, but please keep in mind we cannot advertise until we get approval from the Kentucky Department of Education. So waiting on that advertisement could change that bid date. But nonetheless, we brought over last week a set of documents that were printed at that time. We've added some to those. I've got another set with me tonight with the specifications I've given to Commissioner Austell. But we're in a position to be able to send this out for bidding, and we would ask for your approval.
Board members, any questions regarding the bidding process or action required? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the bidding process as listed. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. I second that. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you all.
BG4 for, that Neil was going to do. This is closing this project out, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. BG4 is, there's 5 BGs, BG4 and BG5. The BG4 closes out that project, and the BG5 just sort of tells them where some of the money is change orders, as I mentioned. I believe Neil has submitted this for your all's approval. I apologize, I didn't bring a copy of it with me, so I'm not 100% sure what's on it, even though I know I signed it.
Yeah, we have it here. And there's several different pieces of paper because each contractor has a separate.
That is correct.
Has a separate piece with that.
You'll have one for each bid package.
I can share that we've done the walkthroughs through the CTE renovation project, and the back parking lot has been completed, and they've done punch lists and building drawings, and we're building with, we still very comfortable with your approval to move forward with the BG4 for that project. There was an overall decrease, but he did share that with us. I had the numbers probably 2 months ago. Some of the change orders were about 20,000.
Yeah, the project came in under budget on bid day, even with the the change orders that were done, we were still under that original BG1 total project cost.
So it's nice to close a project out and then save themselves some money as opposed to going over, because our general public thinks the office a lot of times. And our board and our administrative staff and a lot of our maintenance people help to make that possible. So we want to send their praises. They want the job to go to death, come in and later. On that note, I look for a motion to approve these BG4s and 5s as listed to close out the CTE project. Thank you, Dr. Sugg. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Joyful.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Athletic report. Ms. Vivian, one more time?
Personnel report. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. And I'm not. I said it's still been bittersweet in the last 2 days, so very emotional. Anyway, we did wrap up sports season this year, and unfortunately softball didn't fare well in our own district tournament, but they're a young team, and they're going to work hard to continue to do so. Baseball also hosted and won the district championship and were eliminated make it into semifinals. Had a great year, and that was an upset for us, but a lesson learned, and we'll learn from that as well. Track team this year, again, I think that we had more participants this year, which was outstanding, and a lot of coaches stepped up and encouraged their kids to run track, and it made a difference. We had 9 actually qualify at the regional track meet that we hosted. We didn't get to come out to that. That was a fun day, and it wasn't too hot to run either. So, and at large, after they look at everybody's scores, we had an additional 10 to go. And of course, as you know, we'd be disappointed if JCB did not win, and she did. So, and she also came in second this weekend in a junior Olympic qualifier. So she's injured, but not feeling too good. Still got second. So she's somebody that we're going to be able to look at in the future in a long time. Be proud that she's from Henderson. Tennis team, we also hosted. It was the last year for me to host everything. So I got them all in, and we hosted the tennis tournament, and we had 4 boys that qualified for that. The bass team couldn't host the bass team. Didn't have a big enough lake, but they did really well. You know, considering they're in their second year, they have lots of participants now. We have tons of volunteers. They just missed qualifying to get to go to that state competition. They had a really good year. As you know, fall sports, we started practicing, I think, as soon as they were over. But we continue to have open conditioning, and they're just getting ready for their tryouts in July. Dead period, thank goodness, is coming up for players and coaches. It's well deserved. And I assure you, our coaches abide by that like the book, because that's their vacation time too. It's the kids' vacation. But according to KHSA, you cannot do anything June 25th to July 9th. So we will abide by the law. We still continue to comply with all our KHSA laws. I guess I'm signing off. Thanks.
Thank you, Vivian, for your leadership. You've done a wonderful job. I'd just like to say as well, I've known Vivian since she was a student at Henderson County High School, and the class and the compassion for student athletes that she's brought to our high school is just amazing. And I, for one, salute you for the years that you've put in, and I know that you will be continuing to support Henderson County athletics.
At any time.
My comment about that is more of a public, and you stated it. Those are all great things for our sports, but look at all the people you brought to Henderson County from other parts of our state, our tourism. You brought money in here. These people bought lunches, they bought gas, they bought Big Macs, they spent money at our concession stands. That's all tourism dollars that come back into Henderson County and eventually will help Henderson County students again, because those businesses will turn around and go back to
And
us.
to be quite honest, people love to come to Henderson. They want us to host. They do. So that's always a good feeling when I go to meetings. They're always proud to come in and spend their money. So
That's a great thing. We thank you for
you
playing
guys so
us.
much.
Thank you, Vivian. Moving on to volunteer hours. Ms. Sandy?
Yes, good evening, board members and audience. Just wanted to give you guys a snapshot of our volunteer hours for this past school year. And as you can see that what's been presented in your packet. We are just a little bit low on our volunteer hours at some of our schools, but other schools have compensated well, I think, with the number of volunteer hours. And I just wanted to give you all a look at some of the things that our volunteers have been doing, and also just give recognition to our school volunteer coordinators, our secretaries, and those that help our volunteers feel welcome when they go into our schools. I think this number, 26,951, is a testament that our volunteers feel comfortable and welcomed when they go into our schools. So I just want to give a shout out to those volunteer coordinators at each school, and I'm going to call out their names so that just for your knowledge. At A.B. Chandler, Billy Cummings, Ben Gay, Lisa Souders, and Jennifer Bridell. Cairo Elementary, Samantha Sigler. East Heights, Melissa Walker. Central Academy, Sabrina Jewell. Jefferson, Laura Scott. Niagara, Samantha Sigler. South Heights, Sandy Hazelwood. Spotsville, Chiquita Duncan. North Middle School, Justin Fuller. South Middle School, Kathy Gibbons. Thelma B. Johnson Early Learning Center, Chelsea Thomas, and Henderson County High School, Shauna Evans. And this report would not be possible if it had not been for those individuals calculating the hours and keeping track of those hours. And I also want to thank our community for their support, because rarely is it that when the Henderson County school system asks our community for support, do they deny us. Most always, they are very supportive of Henderson County schools, and we are very blessed to live in a community where our business partners and our community embraces our school system. So I just want to give a shout out to those people. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Cindy. We appreciate it. And you're right. We appreciate everything that our community does for our kids. Okay. We need to go, before we go into recess, to bring our Henderson County Finance Corporation into action. We do need a action we need to resolve and issue. The resolution of the Henderson County Board of Education and Henderson County Schools acknowledges the necessity to amend the bond resolution adopted May 21st, 2015 by the Board of Directors of Henderson County. Henderson County School District Finance Corporation to correct a typographical error and request the Finance Corporation to take the necessary action to amend said bond resolution so as to correctly reflect the board's designation of Independence Bank as paying agent and bond registrar. Ms. Cindy, do you have any comments, any information other than that? Okay. So, I need a motion to approve the resolution acknowledging the necessity to amend the resolution adopted by the Henderson County Finance Corporation on May 21st, 2015, and request the Finance Corporation correct the typographical error and reflect the board's designation as Independence Bank as paying agent and bond registrar. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Make that motion as long as I
Brad. Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Say. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Anybody that opposes, we have to read it, by the way. Okay, so we need to ask for a brief recess so the meeting of the Finance Corporation can be convened. Beth, does that need an action? Okay. I need a motion to adjourn a recess. I need a motion to recess this meeting for a short period. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. Second. Tracy, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. The regional meeting recessed. Bear with me a second, folks. We got a lot of regional meetings right. Okay, we need to call to order this Special Finance Corporation in Henderson County Finance Corporation. Call to order, and then Cindy.
I just need to request that you approve the resolution that was attached to the board packet, naming Independence Bank as the paying agent. There was one place in the original contract where it was the Ohio Valley Financial Group, and we're just asking to have that changed to Independence Bank.
Do I hear a motion to that effect, to make those changes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, changed, adjusted to the Finance Corporation. Okay, and I need a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee. Thank you, Mr. Brad. I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Finance Committee adjourned. We need a motion to go back into our regular board meeting. Thank you, Dr. Sutton. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor, say aye. Motion carried. We're back in the regular board meeting. We apologize everyone for all that. We have to get it exactly right. We'll be doing this again next month. Moving on to old business. Second reading of policy 01.7, board attorney. Ms. Morgana.
In your board, or in your packet, we attached the policy 1.7, and it's pretty much the first paragraph, I think, that we were still working on. So if you all take the opportunity, please, to read that, and we're requesting the second reading for this policy.
Any questions, changes on this?
I move we accept this as a second reading as written in the packet.
Do I hear a second? By Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Policy changed. Moving on to new business. Special energy project. Mr. Steve.
Yes, ma'am. This is the project that I talked to you, I think, in our last meeting. It's a KU energy project match. What we've done since the time that we've talked is we worked with Joe Nance to kind of help us develop a BG1. And in that BG1, we've listed the total cost of the project. We feel will be around $18,000. What that does by making that designation is it sets us up for the residual match option, which means we can get $6,000 back, first of all, and then so that $18,000 project is going to knock us down to 12. My math is right. The next thing it offers us is as an opportunity that if other school districts do not opt into this KU match project, there may be some additional funds that are there, or if we put in a little bit more money, then they'll match that as well. There's no guarantee for that, but we just want to put ourselves in that position. And then also, the other thing is we feel like we can start in the classrooms and work our way down and just about take care of these lights with leaving the lights alone, obviously, but take care of lighting issues there, and that'll help us energy efficiency wise, and the lighting will be much better as well. So we're here to ask approval to move forward. Basically, what we would do then is, if we're approved, we'll send that on to Franklin for them to stamp that we can move forward. We'll also turn in this residual match option to KU, put us on the list, and that money will be coming from the nickel area. Has to be after July 1, which is actually the first time that we can apply for the match as well. So it's kind of cool.
Mr. Stoner, if there does become other money available because other counties don't join this program, then you said we would have to put up additional money to get additional money. Would you all then come back to us for the resolution as well and put it more?
We're going to do $18,000, and that sets us up for some additional money to come to us. So we won't come back to ask for more at this point. We've got this project going. We've also got lighting at the gyms going as well, and on down the line there may be some other things, but at this point that's where we're
So at this point we could have additional match money coming in, but we won't get any additional money coming out of our pocket.
Yes, ma'am. 18 is the most that we would.
So we would do that. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that detail. I look for a motion to approve special energy project funding as described by Mr. Steve. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. We're here a second. Thank you, Dr. Sutton. All in favor say aye.
And also for the BG1.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried for the funding participation, and then, we need a motion to approve the BG1 for East Heights Elementary lighting upgrade. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Recognition, Mr. Steve?
Yes, ma'am. For that.
We also have a BG1 for safety and security communications for W.B. Johnson and Cairo School.
Yes, ma'am. And Chandler,
Oh,
East
Chandler,
Heights,
East
South
Heights.
Heights, 58, Niagara, North, South Middle. The reason why we listed those students or those schools and left out other ones. Number one, we left out the high school because if you will recall, they had an emergency situation with their intercom where it went down and we had to correct it this year. So they're already upgraded to that system. And so we would like to have a universal system all the way across every school. So they have the same access. We have the same access to them. Everything interfaces and works together. This system will allow even Ms. Stanley to be able to make announcements to the school from her office. So there's several upgrades on there. The reason why we asked this, number one, is because of the age at which our communication system is within the school system, and then also to get some of the upgrades and safety features that we see are needed in our schools right now. One of the other options, a unique option, is for us to be able to adjust our bells a whole lot easier than in the past. I know it's always been an issue there in the county, but for our elementary schools too, even to try to figure out somebody that knew how to plug in to where we could start a bell at 7:30 and bring one that's at 2:25 or whatever else it was just was almost impossible. So this kind of brings us all to the same page. There are 3 schools listed besides the high school not listed on there. Spotsville, which we're taking care of very soon, and as soon as they are built and ready, that's when we'll put that system in place. Central, with the adjustments that they're doing right now, it's not prudent to put that in place. And then Jefferson, we know, is another school that we're looking towards, and we decided to wait on that one and use their current system that they have in place. And if something breaks or something goes wrong, we can swap some materials from those other schools, so it won't go down on us where we can't fix it. That was another issue that we were seeing, was trying to find parts and the people that would work on was impossible, or not impossible, it was close to it. So once again, we worked with Joanne to create a BG1 for this project. Once again, this money will be coming from our nickel, and we'll take care of this, and that's what we're seeking approval. Or unless you have any questions.
Do you have any questions about this? This is in line with our strategic plan and our maintenance
All facilities.
plan as well. Anyone have any questions about this or comments? No? This is part of what we talked about when we went out to our community and talked about the nickel, that we would be using this for the safety and security of our students. So this is a priority for us. Okay. I look for a motion to approve BG1 for safety and security communication upgrades as listed. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. Do I hear a second? Second, Dr. Sugg. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item C, first reading of 2016 KSBA policy update. Ms. Morgan.
There were several policies in your board packet. All of these were policies that KSBA sent to us as recommendation. Our administrative team and people who particularly work at monitoring those policies have read through them. We have cleaned through any changes. You also notice that these policies at the very top there are sentences in all capital letters. That gives you the rationale as to why KSBA is suggesting changes be made. Some of them are just definitions, some are guardians and parent, just simple words. Others, there's a few in there that do really change the way that we do work, and we're able to accept those, adopt those. The procedures, well, that's really the next item, but I'll speak to it. The procedures are also attached behind most policies. Then there's a procedure that explains how do you carry that policy out. We did also see a lot of changes in No Child Left Behind. That federal law, federal guideline, no longer do we, it doesn't really exist anymore now with the new ESSA. And so many policies in here had changes to take out pieces that we had to do with No Child Left Behind. Does anybody have any questions of any of the policies? Or
I do. This is an area that I'm particularly interested in. As I said before, always checking that we're saying what we mean what we say. So I love the fact that we use KSBA and their policy system. The only question I had, I'm not really sure the significance of the different colors of font coming from KSBA. Do you all know what that signifies?
There's not. Sometimes we get them and they're in purple.
Okay. And in this case, it was red, purple, and gold. And I thought maybe one was because of legislative changes, one was for a different purpose.
I don't think it goes that way. Oh, okay.
They have a team of people that look at it from different angles, yes.
Each color represents the color.
Thank you. I was curious about that.
Okay, so to approve the first reading of 2016 KSBA policy update number 39 as described by Ms. Morgana. I'll make that motion. Do you have a second? Thank you, Dr. Sugg. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Procedures do not have to be approved, they go with it. Is that correct? Okay. So moving on to the first reading of student code of conduct handbook.
Yes, ma'am. We're asking you to just approve this as written. There's only a few minor adjustments based on policies and things that KSBA have kind of asked to kind of look over. The code of conduct group will meet again this next year and also develop. We'll look at what we have already and then adjust as well. But this will be the second year of this, and we'll be moving forward on that.
Steve, just to clarify what you just said, I read through and just looked at all of the legislative changes. So what you're saying, there are no changes initiated for this year from any committee in Henderson County?
Mm-hmm.
It's all just the legislative issues?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions or comments? You understood that? I'll look for a motion from you, Dr. Sugg. Thank you, Mayor. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. First reading of use of tobacco policy. Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. First reading of policy 05.12, donor recognition. Julie.
Well, have the adjusted changes, and we've discussed this at a couple of meetings. This is a bit more comprehensive than before. Take any questions?
reflects all of the comments that we collectively made during the work session. So I would move that we accept this as written as a first reading for our policy.
Okay, Jim? Oh, Tracy did. Tracy did. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Just wanted everyone to get off the checklist. Thank you. Motion approved. Now we can move to G, which is first reading of use of tobacco policies. Ms. Nancy?
Yes, you have the examples of those policies in your packets. That is, the goal, of course, is to, for Henderson County Schools to be 100% tobacco-free in all schools and on all campuses, and we noted in the wording of that we were very specific about it to make sure that it included the grounds, and we developed a plan that's also attached. How we rolled this determination out, and this, after the support that we received, we were able to move forward with a draft and finalized changes in the policy, and have a continuing plan of communication that we will adhere to through the remainder of the summer to the beginning of the school year, and then throughout, especially the fall part of the school year when we start our sporting events, to be very courteous, but also to be very informative of our campus and what the requirements will be if we so choose to accept these policies.
I just have one question. I don't see it on here, but I'm assuming that you plan to talk with the local law enforcement, those that provide security. That seems to be where one of the biggest issues, especially football games, that happen because of lack of communication between different groups. So just so everybody's on the same page, the security needs to be aware as well.
Yes, and I appreciate you pointing that out. Vivian also pointed that out to me as well. Excuse me. I understand that we have 3 officers that are on duty when we have our home football games. We also have a plan to provide information to all of the visitors, everyone that attends the game. We'll give them some information as soon as they come in the gate. So kind of a proactive approach, and then just as a courtesy, we'll give them a little, I won't say warning, just a little by the way, and hopefully that will take care of the situation.
Along those lines, is there any plans to forward information to visiting schools before those schools come to our campuses?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is, even as Vivian gets ready to print the fall schedules tomorrow, if we get your approval, we will put on there proud to be a 100% tobacco-free campus.
Do you have any idea how many other schools across the state of Kentucky of this policy?
Over 50 other districts, and I'm sure the number's even higher now. The big push was first put out in the summer of 2014, and by the summer of 2015, we had information that over 50 districts had gone to 100% tobacco-free. So we're a little behind times, but I feel like that we needed to address it in a proactive manner to ensure that we had the support that we needed. Also, we will offer smoking cessation classes for any of our staff that has that need.
I just have one concern with the language more so than anything. I want to make sure that we know what we're talking about, or what the intent of the words including alternative nicotine products. Does that include if a teacher is not able to smoke, but he or she wants to wear the patch to school, because that could be considered an alternative nicotine product?
I appreciate you bringing that up. That's the first time that has been a concern.
in talking with KSBA, we did not discuss that, but I certainly will inquire.
If you read the KRS that is referred to in that policy, the KRS does define smoking cessation aids as approved by the FDA is not included as alternative nicotine products. So she can wear the patch, she can chew the gum.
So that makes
Yeah.
And thank goodness for Julie, she caught that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there signage that we purchased that says that we're a smoke-free facility? Like, I just think when I walk in the hospital, I see signage that says, okay.
All part of the plan. Just not spending any money yet. Just when we have your approval.
Thanks, Nancy.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I look for a motion to approve the first reading of this, new tobacco policy, assisted by Ms. Nancy Gibson. Okay, so there will be a motion by Ms. Tracy and a second by Mr. Miller. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Nancy. Moving on to consent agenda. 9 items. Is there anything that needs to be pulled for special discussion or questions?
I just have a question, and I just need somebody to clarify. The classified work schedule, I don't know that it needs to be pulled, but would somebody explain to me, it's very confusing to look at. And I know that the classified folks can read it, they follow it, but what, are there changes to it? What are we actually approving?
The work calendars.
Right.
We're approving, there are so many different categories of different contracts. It's not landed, and so you're really approving the number of days each person is. I'm trying to pull up the first.
So is that a change from what they had last year in the number of days, or is it just a change of dates?
Just a change of dates. And then it just lists for them on that sheet, like when they're paid holidays are. Yeah, no.
So we're not adding days or anything changed, it's just a change.
The only change is that it's 2016, 17, we do it.
Okay, any other items approved? Or questions? Yes, Mr.
I have one question. On the insurance bids, do we know the same company we're going to have the same provider, that's good. The same company, Liberty Mutual, do we know if there were other companies that were interested or solicited for a bid? I mean,
Whatever he provided, he got quotes from different.
he did get other quotes from other carriers besides.
Okay.
It actually did go down about 6.5% at this point.
Anything that's a decrease in bonuses? Good number. Okay, we have all questions answered. Look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda approved. On to financial treasurer's report.
And the treasurer's report for the month of May includes total receipts of $6,127,806 and total expenses of $7,241,341 for a net decrease in all funds of $1,113,535. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I request your approval of the treasurer's report as reported us tonight by Cindy Cloutier.
Look for a motion to approve the treasurer's report as listed. There's no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Do I hear a second? Second by Dr. Sutt. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Financial report approved. Moving on to the paid warrant report, also Ms. Cindy.
Alright, the paid warrant report covers the period of May 17th through June 20th, 2016. Total payments, Bluegrass International Trucks for buses, $345,092. And Central States bus sales, number 1 buses, $248,287.44. North Coast for some roofing that we purchased ourselves to save some money, $237,711.07. Bird construction services for roofing projects, $166,455. CDW for all kinds of technology equipment, $73,755.57. CRS One Source for food, $67,691.54. Lynn Lyon Inc. for Odyssey Rare renewal, $46,750. Infinite Campus renewal, $44,749.56. RBS Design Grid for some work on Spotsville, $41,294.10. Prairie Farms for milk, $32,534.93. Pomeroy Computer Resource for 50 Optiplex paid from kits, $29,643.50. And Kimi Workers' Comp installment number 6, $21,596.38. Total payments on this paid warrant of $3,340,793.02. Any questions on the paid warrant?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I request your approval of the paid warrant report as presented to you by Cindy Cloutier.
Look for a motion to approve the paid warrant report and pay the bills. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Pay the bills, Ms. Cindy. Salary schedule, Ms. Ginger?
In your package, you have the 16-17 salary schedule. You'll notice there's no general wage increase for certified or classified employees, but I will highlight all of the changes that were made from the 15-16 to 16-17 salary schedule. If you go to page 4, under extra service positions and supplements for principals, the addition is high school assistant principal CTE unit. It is a 220-day position compared to 240 for other high school assistant principals. This is a reflection of, it's part of our budget savings and CTE cost savings on page 4. If you go to, everything else has stayed the same until you get to page 8. Under soccer, middle school, we're requesting your favorable consideration for adding 4 supplements at the middle school level for soccer, 2 at each middle school, 1 for boys, 1 for girls. These are teams that have been in existence for, it's 4 years or 5 years, and it goes along with the other middle school programs, track and volleyball. Another addition is on page 10. No change in the substitute pay. However, what has changed on page 10 is the administrative substitutes. This clarifies when daily wage threshold will or will not be honored. And I'll just read it. The event a substitute or anyone is needed for an administrative position, superintendent may elect to hire a certified retiree. It is only in these cases as approved by the superintendent that a retiree will receive his or her daily wage threshold, also known as DWT. All other substitute positions must follow the salary schedule posted above, which we have for substitute teacher pay scale and classified pay scale. We felt that this comment was necessary to put in our salary schedule because throughout our district we had different people, retired people who were working for us in a sub position receiving their daily wage threshold, and that becomes very costly, doing the daily wage threshold over your substitute pay. So we're making sure everyone is aware that we use the substitute pay strictly off the salary schedule. The only time that we would ask or we would allow that to happen is if it was an administrative position, and that would have to be approved by me. An example, Ms. Johnny at Campbell School, that's a perfect example. But we had to get we didn't really do an interim. The site-based council didn't ask for an interim. They wanted to go ahead and post and hire, and so we put a sub in that position and pay the daily wage threshold because there's not a sub pay administrator. So, and we internally define administrative as principal, assistant principal. It kind of clears up this daily wage threshold scenario that we've kind of been battling for a few years. Also on page 10, we just clarified the statement. The 20-day rule is in, if you have a long-term sub and they are in the same assignment for 20 days, on day 21 they can receive from the regular teacher's pay scale according to the beginning salary of their respective rank. What that means is, in the past it was not clear, it just said in a continuing, so we just defined that as same position, no missed days, and that it starts on day 21. It was just rather gray in the past, and for what we've learned from answering the question several times, if we had it laid out in black and white, it's a whole lot easier. So that's why it's been clarified there on page 10. And if you move to page 13, that is the classified salary schedule by job classification. There are a few items. On page 13, you'll notice under pay grade 18, we've added instructional monitor 1. I'm going to explain all of these changes. Also, on pay grade 19, we've added instructional monitor 2 and instructional assistant 2. What those are, we had program assistants across the district. Some of those were in the preschool, some of those were in special ed, some of those were just in regular programming. We needed to define by program if a person was working with as an instructional assistant, per se, in each of those programs. So all of those people will stay at the same pay grade, it's just they have a job title change. So if I'm in preschool, I used to be considered a program assistant, now I'm considered an instructional assistant 2. That way, anytime we see instructional assistant 2, we know they are associated with preschool. If I am working with, I call it ISS, in-school suspension, some people say in-house, each school has a little different term. If you are working with those students who are in-house, you would be considered an instructional monitor 2. In the past, some of those were also considered program assistants. So we know that if that person's an instructional monitor 2, they are most likely monitoring the in-house students. And also, if I was a program assistant in special ed last year, I'm a program assistant in special ed this year. Those are the ones that got to keep the same job classification as program assistant. We did have a few instructional assistant 2 positions across the district. Those moved to instructional monitor 1. And some of those are from back in the day, I think whenever Title I had program, there were Title I program assistants, there were instructional assistants. So they're just, I think maybe 3 or 4 across the district. Their pay didn't change, it's just their job title. Instead of instructional assistant 2, their instructional monitor 1. Because our instructional assistant 2s are now in preschool. I have it on Post-it, and I will have to have it above my desk for several months before I can remember all of those changes. So, but just know that they've all stayed the same pay. They're just signing a different job description. Okay, so that's on page 13. Page 14, there's only one item that was changed. Vehicle Operations Control Analyst. That position is the person who was in that position resigned to take a position out of district. So instead of reposting that, we posted it as a clerk, and it should represent a cost savings of $6,000 or more in the transportation department. And so we're not electing to continue that position in the future. So we're striking that from the salary schedule. Page 15. This is actually just splitting 2 lines. We have attendance resource specialist. It is in the same job class as social worker. They used to be more on the same line, so we divided those out into 2 separate lines. Very similar in job categories if you're in the student services office, but if you're a social worker in our schools, it's a little bit different. So we just broke those out into 2 separate lines. They're the same classification, same pay grade. We just needed it to, because if I was an attendance resource specialist, but I wasn't a social worker, it kind of, it just makes it more clear to have them on 2 separate lines. And, final addition is on the last page, page 16. This is something you guys approved at the previous board meeting. I just wanted to let you know, show you where it is reflected in the salary schedule, and that's athletic director. It's at the last row of that first piece. So this athletic director with starting pay and up to 20 years of service. Questions?
I had a couple of questions. On the beginning pages where it delineates the administrative positions and what those increments will be, there's no column to delineate how many of each individual position we have. I think that would be helpful to put out the cited in parentheses that we currently are funding 3 assistant superintendents, 1 director of assessment and accountability, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if we had that on the last salary schedule or not, but I think that would be very much clearer since we've done it for the other positions like soccer and everybody else. So I would say that we need to add that, what's currently being funded. And then also in the minutes, at least, I'd like for it to reflect that the director of instruction, we had discussed during budget times that we were going to not hire that position this year, leave that position on the books, but we weren't going to fill that position for the superintendent, and so that's another cost saving for this school year.
So Dr. Sutter, are you asking that the number of positions be included in that before we approve this document, or do you just want it added for the next term?
No, I'm okay with approving it. I would just like to see that added to reflect what we currently are funding.
Okay with that, Ginger?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I look for a motion to approve the 2016-2017 salary schedule as listed and presented by Ms. Ginger. Thank you, Dr. Sugg. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Jennifer. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Salary schedule approved. Thank you, Ms. Ginger. Personnel actions, we have received those. there is no action required on that. 2016 and 2017 certified and classified positions. Ms. Morgan?
This is the cumulative list of our employees and the position that they hold in the school that they're assigned to. And we present this to you all each school year. This is currently the staff right now today. Obviously, you know, that could change with resignations, retirements. And so you have two attachments. You have the certified and classified. Request the board's approval for those, please.
These are in line with the budget that we tentatively approved based on that information, correct? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Look for a motion to approve the certified classified positions as listed by Ms. Morgan. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Tracy. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Superintendent evaluation. I'll read the statement that we will give to. We will be releasing in a press release tomorrow. Mrs. Marnita Stanley, as superintendent of Henderson County Schools, received ratings based on the standards set by the superintendent is evaluated every year according to a superintendent professional growth and effectiveness system, also known as SPGES, that was designed and approved by the Kentucky Department of Education. Although the total evaluation of Mrs. Stanley is done in a closed session of the board, phrases that were used to describe her work in Henderson County Schools included works for the good of students, collaborative environment, reinvigorating, improved district culture, and willingness to take decisive action. Mrs. Stanley received the following designations for her review. Strategic leadership, accomplished. Instructional leadership, exemplary. Cultural leadership, accomplished. Human resource leadership, accomplished. Managerial leadership, accomplished. Collaborative leadership, exemplary. And influential leadership, developing. We as the board are pleased with the overall accomplishments Ms. Stanley has made in the first 2 years of her role as superintendent. We look forward to working with her on the goals she has set for herself, the students of our district, and our school system as a whole. Henderson County Schools is a distinguished district, and we are all working very hard to keep it that way and improve our schools for the students, the staff, and our community. That leads us to the adjournment. Look for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, Dr. Sutton. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
So that was a long time ago.
No, very rare, very all due respect.